Hey there, my name is Andrew Bloom, and I am a certified public bookkeeper, QuickBooks Pro Advisor, and owner of my bookkeeping business, Profit Logic. I'm also a PhD student getting my doctorate in business administration. Today, I'm going to show you how to use the free version of the accounting and bookkeeping software, Wave. First, imagine this. You've just taken a huge leap of faith and launched your own online business. Armed with a small budget of $1,000 and big dreams, you're ready to make this work. But as you dive in, you realize there's more to running a business than passion and great ideas. You know that staying on top of your finances is essential to avoid costly mistakes down the road. So you consider hiring a bookkeeper, which is a very smart move. But with a tight budget, it's just not possible right now. And as for the pricey, full-featured bookkeeping apps, that's out too. Then you stumble upon Wave, a free, powerful tool that just might be exactly what you need in this moment. But once you sign up and log into the platform, you're completely dumbstruck by what seems like an overwhelming piece of financial software. You might be asking yourself, how in the world do I even get started with this? That was my first thought too when I first started doing bookkeeping for my own business. For the first 3 years of my online business, I used Wave, and over time I figured out exactly how to get the most out of this free bookkeeping software. By the end of this video, I'm gonna make sure that you can easily and comfortably use Wave to start doing the books for your own business. In this course, I'll walk you through Wave step by step, from setting up the software to recording common business transactions and processing financial statements. I'll also show you how each step is applied by demonstrating with a fictional marketing business called Marketing Experts. So too, like a TA or professor, I'm gonna give you exercises and quiz questions to make sure that you are internalizing what you are learning and to help train you to properly use your Wave software. Keep in mind that these kinds of courses often cost $70 or more on platforms like Udemy, but I'm going to give it to you all for free right here on YouTube. All I ask for in return is to please subscribe to the Profit Logic channel and give this video a thumbs up to help with the algorithm because it seems to like that. Are you ready to get started? I'm going to turn you from a bookkeeping novice into a savvy, confident business owner with finances that are organized, clear, and working for you, not against you. All right, let's get started and make every dollar count. Okay, so to start off, what is Wave? Wave Accounting is a cloud-based solution tailored for small businesses, freelancers, and consultants who need a more straightforward tool to manage their finances compared to something like QuickBooks, which can be more complicated. With Wave, users can easily track income, expenses, and cash flow, generating key financial reports to keep their business on track. Custom invoicing features allow businesses to create branded invoices, send automatic reminders, and accept payments via credit card or direct deposit straight to their bank account. So for businesses with employees, Wave has payroll capabilities that can help with tracking hours, salaries, and tax deductions, although their full-on payroll service is a bit limited. Additionally, the software includes a handy receipt scanning feature that works offline, making it easy to organize receipts on the go. Wave's free plan has no hidden fees or limitations, and it still provides an excellent starting point for those without much accounting experience. Although some users find it lacks certain tools like time tracking and inventory management, Wave still remains a solid choice for those seeking an accessible and cost-effective way to handle their own accounting, especially when starting a new business. Okay, so soon I'm going to show you each and every one of the pages in Wave and a complete overview of the software. But before we get into that, I want to go over the difference between the starter plan and the pro plan in Wave. So to get to this page, just click pricing up at the top. So I'm going to let you know that I'm coming into this a little bit biased. I do think Wave is a pretty decent software for doing your own bookkeeping. However, as you grow your business. So let's say once you reach at least the $1,000, $5,000 per month mark, you're going to A, want to get a bookkeeper, and B, probably use something that's a bit more robust than what Wave has to offer, something like QuickBooks or Xero. Personally, I like to use QuickBooks with my clients. I think it's the gold standard in the market, but because you're not quite there yet, you're really just looking to do your own bookkeeping for now, or maybe this is a side hustle, a little small part-time business, and you have no intention of growing, then if you're making less than like $1,000 per month, $2,000 per month, you can do your books yourself, and you'll want to use something very cheap and reliable like Wave. So this was a new addition they started rolling out about in the last year to 2023, 2024. Wave used to be completely free. Now they have this pro plan. So for their starter plan, you can basically do your basic bookkeeping. You can manually create estimates, invoices, bills, bookkeeping records. You can take online payments on your invoices or get a link for your website. Wave will process this for you, and the tracking of those payments will happen automatically in your books. They also have an app where you can do your manual input of transactions on the go, as well as scan receipts and also track both your finances and your clients. On the Pro plan, which is only $16 a month, still not bad compared to other software services that offer bookkeeping and accounting, you get to have automatic payments. They basically auto import your bank transactions from your credit cards, your bank, and this will happen automatically so that when you go to do your bookkeeping transactions, they're basically already in your software in the Wave account. You just need to categorize them and update information. You don't have to do it manually. So 2, you can have unlimited receipts, and I'm guessing they have more digital tools in their app for those who pay monthly, and you can set up some payment reminders. This is really great if you're gonna use that processing of payments through Wave. They'll send automatic emails to your clients who might be late in paying. Yeah, there's more, and apparently there's more. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to assume you're a small business. You are not interested in paying for the software. We're just going to focus on what the starter plan has to offer. You're in a free course, looking for a free software. We're going to just keep this bootstrap, baby. Don't worry about paying for anything right now. Okay, so on the dashboard, we have a couple things going on. They have a little navigation tool here with a list of things you can do. You can automatically add a customer, you can add a vendor, you can customize your invoices, you can invite a guest collaborator, maybe a bookkeeper. You can hire some of their professional accounting help. You're able to set up your payments using this accept credit cards to get paid faster option. You'll find the create a new button over here. It's the same list as you'll find in your navigation bar. Over here we have open advisor bar. It looks like it offers a variety of different information, giving you a reminder of different tasks you may need to perform. For example, here they're showing an option to do a reconciliation on your account. They have tax ready business checklists, which basically funnel you into using either their tax advisor, accountants, as well as doing some useful and common tasks for getting your books ready for tax time. Down here they have a button for getting a consultation with their Wave advisor. You're going to see this a lot. They will be looking to press for their own services, and if you're a small business, that can be a really useful tool. I can't speak to the quality of the service, but it is here if you need it, and you could always do more research yourself. Some other advisor tips and suggestions for some articles. So that's the advisor bar right there. Next, we have a couple of infographics. Here we have cash flow, profit and loss, and Cash flow is a little different from profit and loss. When you start putting in transactions each month, you're going to see a green line, which will be your inflow, and a gray line, which will be your outflow. And the black bar between them will be the difference between your inflow minus your outflow. So inflow is different from income, which is in profit and loss. Inflow can be the money you make on sales. It can also be any money that you put in from your personal account into the business that is not income from your business. It is money that belongs to you as a person. So it's not really part of your profit and loss. And this will be the infographic you need to basically get an idea of how much cash you actually have, because your actual profit, your actual income, if you're invoicing clients, they may not pay right away, but it's going to be recorded as a sale because the transaction already happened. So you may have more money in profit than you actually have in cash, and vice versa. If you owe your vendors money and you haven't paid them yet, then you're going to have more cash than you actually have in profit. So these are some numbers that you want to keep in mind as you're inputting your transactions and running your business. So same thing with profit and loss. There will be a green income line, a gray expense line, and you'll be able to see the differences between the two as your transactions accrue. And both of these, you have the option to look at whether the last year or the last 2 years. And there's a button to look on the report of these as well. So continuing with the dashboard, if you scroll down, you have a brief overview of payable and owing. This is really important if you are a service industry that runs invoices, and if you make purchases for your business that don't require immediate payment. It is really crucial to pay attention to who hasn't paid and what money you owe. Next, there's net income. We'll tell you when your fiscal year starts, because income is relative depending on what time span you're looking at. It'll just give you a very brief 12-month overview of your actual income, your expenses, and your net income based on the last year and the current year. And once you have expenses listed, they will break down and show you in each of your categories how your expenses are broken up, which again is a very useful tool to use if you're looking for ways to cut costs and to see which expenses which eat up most of your income. And you can look at that yearly basis or monthly. Okay, so that's the dashboard. Next, we have sales and payments. Within sales and payments, you're going to see a variety of pages that will relate to anything involving your customer. So you have estimates, invoices, payment setup to be able to run payments through Wave, recurring invoices. This is a great tool for when you need to send an invoice regularly, like on a monthly basis for a reoccurring customer. Checkouts, this is basically setting up a link that Wave can run and process payments through on your web page. There are customer statements. This is a report that lets you get an individualized view of a customer's purchases and their payments. There will be a list of customers. This will be the hub to basically look at their information and add or remove customers. A list of your products and services. This is what you offer in exchange for payment, and it'll be important to keep these lists up to date so you can more quickly make your invoices and categorize your transactions. So let's begin with estimates. You'll see when you're setting up, you can basically create your own estimate form, your own template where you can add your logo. You can choose the accent color on the bar here and do a more contemporary, modern, or classic template. So for now, we're just gonna skip this and we'll be looking at your estimate form. This is the same form that if you went up here and you clicked estimate, it'll bring you to the same exact page. So this lets you create an estimate. You can type in a name for it, type in a summary or a description. You'll have your business information here. You can click to add a customer, and you'll be able to add them automatically as you keep a list of customers. The estimate number, if you keep reference numbers for your customers, you can add that here too. You'll put in the date that you put out the estimate and make a date for how long it'll be valid. And here you will add the line items of what to include in your estimate. You can add a discount, and you can put the total in whatever currency is most relevant to your business in the countries you operate in. You can include notes and terms as well. You can customize the footer message as well, like putting in a thank you note or any tax information, such as like a VAT number. You can also attach files, but this looks like it's part of their upgraded option, so that's not important to us right now. And once this is filled out, you can preview it. You can save and send it automatically, but you'll probably want to save and continue to more options, and we'll go over this in more detail later. Next, we have invoices. Again, most of the things that you do in the nav bar, you can also just do by selecting create new, and here's the invoice. Similar to estimates, you can customize them, your logo with a certain accent color and a certain template type. For now, we're going to skip this. Just show you that on an invoice, you can put in the name of the invoice, the summary. This option to save and continue or save and send is both on the top and the bottom of the invoice form. You'll be able to add a customer, invoice number. You can include a number for it as well. You'll put in the date that the invoice was made, the date when payment is due. You'll include your items that the customer purchased in the invoice. You can select a tax rate, creating your own custom taxes, especially if your business operates from different states or different countries. You can make tax settings in here and they'll be saved, and so you can reuse them in the future. You can select which account this income belongs to. Usually it's going to be sales. Next, we're going to go to payment setup. In payment setup, this is where you will set up Wave as your payment collector. We'll go over this in more detail later when I show you how to do it with a fictional business. But for now, just know that if you want to set up payments, you can do so under sales and payments. Next, there's recurring invoices. You can create a recurring invoice by selecting the button. It'll basically look like a regular invoice, except that you'll get an option for when to regularly assign this invoice. Next, we have checkouts, which is going to be part of the same payment setup as this button up here. Again, we'll go over this later. Down here, we have customer statements. Once you have customers and they start running transactions, you'll be able to select a customer and get an idea of what their outstanding invoices are and their account activity, so their purchases or returns or amount owed. These are statements you can send to your customers, and then you'll just click the create statement button there. Next, we have customers. This is pretty important if you're going to use Wave for invoicing, less important if you just want to record transactions. So when you click new customer, you can put in their business or name, their contact information like their first name, their last name, their email, their phone number. You can add an additional phone number. You can also include an account number for them, their website, and any notes you want to include. Down here, you can click their specific currency. If you're operating internationally, this is really useful. You can include a billing address for them with their address, country, province, state, city, postal zip code, and you can include shipping information with a name for the shipment, again a shipping address with their country, province, state, city, zip code. You can include a phone number and delivery instructions as well. And when you have that completed, you'll click save. And once you have customers, this will look different as well, but we'll go over that in more detail in later segments. Next, we have products and services. You'll go up here to include a new product or service. This will be the area where you'll have a list of your products and services. You'll want to include the name, a description of what it is, how much it sells for. You'll see these sell this, buy this button. If, let's say, you're a reseller, you can have the option in t-shirts. Maybe you sell this merchandise. You can select which account it goes into. We'll put this into sales. You can also include it as buy this so that it can be used as a cost of goods sold, which you'll want to have as one of your expense accounts. And you can include a sales tax for it as well that will be calculated automatically in your invoices or in your bills. And that sums it up for sales and payments. Next, we're going into purchases. So purchases are going to be everything involved with your vendors, the people you spend your money on who will help you with services and products to basically run your business. So under bills, you can create a bill. You'll include your vendor, the currency, the bill date, the due date, the bill number, notes. You can include what item is you bought, the expense category it goes to, a description, how many units you bought, the price of it, and the tax rate as well. And you'll see the total here, and you can save that. Just remember that bills are for vendors. Your clients do not have bills. Your clients have invoices or payments. They do not get bills even if you're paying them monthly. Bills are only for vendors. That's why they're part of the purchases category. So next, we have your actual vendors. You can import them with a CSV file or through your Google contacts. You can also manually enter a vendor here. You'll enter their name in this field. They can either be a regular vendor, someone maybe they're another business you buy supplies from, or they can be a 1099 NEC contractor, someone who you are basically hiring to do a job for you, but they are their own business. They are not your employee. And that's really neat that you can separate them like that in Wave. So you'll enter their name, their last name, their currency, their email, their country, state, address, and you can add additional information as well, like an account number, their phone number, website, and you'll save that, and this will create your vendors list. Next, we have products and services. These are purchases, products and services that you are buying through your business to help your business. They are not the things you sell. So you can add those in this area as well. Next, we have the receipts page. Here, they're advertising their scan receipt option, their app option, which is apparently something they charge for. So if you want this extra tool, it looks like you can pay for just receipts, especially if you want to do this manually and you like making your transactions recorded as quick as possible. This might be a useful tool to have, especially if you're managing a lot of different goods and you want to get this information into your account fast and keep your receipts in all one place. Otherwise, just using something like a Google Drive folder to hold all your receipts until you manually enter them, you can do that for free too. And it looks like they share some information about the receipt service as well. So moving forward, next there's accounting. This is going to be an important part of setting up the business on Wave. So let's go over this item by item. First are transactions. This will be a very important, if not the most important page in the software when you're trying to keep track of your expenses. So let's say you sell things in person, or clients are already automatically buying a course from you online. The payment has already been made. You're not doing an invoice. You're going to include the transaction here. This is a record that the transaction happened. You'll have the date for it, its description. You'll choose which account it belongs to and what type of transaction it is, whether it's a withdrawal, a deposit, and you'll include the category as well. You can include sales tax, you can add a customer. This is kind of a generic template for a wide variety of transactions. Each transaction may use a different number of these fields, but this is kind of like an all-in-one template. As we add transactions, they'll be listed here, and there will be options to filter and sort them later on. You can also upload transactions using CSV files and these other files as well. And it looks like they have an advisor bar over here too. Next, after transactions, another important button, you have reconciliation. Here it looks like there's a pop-up to teach you a little bit about what reconciliation is, how to do it. Looks like they have a tutorial. We're going to pass that for now. Here again, they have free consultations, it looks like, to get you to sign up with their bookkeeping team. We'll go over how to do a reconciliation a bit later. So next, another important page is your chart of accounts. These are all the accounts that together make up the financial system of your business. They are your categories for all of your transactions. And I'm going to be honest and say that a lot of you are going to get this wrong. It took me 3 years of doing my bookkeeping without any bookkeeping knowledge, no accounting courses, to realize, once I started studying to become a bookkeeper, I realized how wrong my categorizations were. It's a little different from running a budget for your personal expenses and you just kind of say what each thing is. And I'll do my best to teach you a little bit of how to set up a chart of accounts, but some basic accounting knowledge is useful in understanding why these accounts exist and how they connect to one another. They're separated in your assets, your liabilities and credit card accounts, your income versus expenses accounts, and the equity of the owner. There's a button to add a new account up here, and we'll move on. Here they have a hire a bookkeeper button. You're going to see this a lot. They're going to encourage you to sign up with their advisors, which I can't speak to the experience. I've never hired one of their advisors. My one concern, though, would be that you don't actually know who you're going to be working with, what that bookkeeper's expertise is, what their experience or education is like, and I'm not sure how frequent they will communicate with you or what that communication style is. If you've had an experience with Wave advisors in the past, feel free to leave a comment in the chat. I'm very curious myself. Again, if you're a very, very small business with less than 100 transactions a month, this could be something that you want to do if it's only ever going to be a side hustle. It might be one of your more affordable options when hiring a bookkeeper when you get to the point where you just don't want to do the books yourself. Moving forward, we're leaving accounting and going into the banking section. Here, there's an option for connecting accounts, which again is only part of their paid plan. So we're going to leave that and go to payouts. This is another button just to set up payments with them, that you can receive money on your invoices, receive money on your website, and then those transactions will automatically show up in Wave. Next, there's a button for insurance, suggesting use of Next Insurance. I personally use Next Insurance, so not a bad service, pretty affordable, but basically it looks like another partner program for them. And just to note, if you have a business, you need insurance. This is not optional. So it looks like Wave is providing a lot of resources for new small businesses, kind of all-in-one, if you will, for more of the financial back end. Next, we have payroll. There's a button to run payroll. This is all part of their payroll package. Again, with payroll transactions and their taxes, as well as tax forms. And I think you're looking at $20 per month plus $6 for each active employee. If you're just doing it yourself in one of these states that are not listed up here, or it's $40 per month plus $6 for each active employee or independent contractor paid if your business operates in one of these states. Payroll is not a specialty of mine, so I can't speak a lot to this, but it is nice to know that if you start using Wave and you get comfy in Wave and you want to keep using Wave and you get employees, then you can use their payroll services if you like. Next, we have reports. This is another really important part of Wave. Running reports for your business is kind of like doing your health tracking. Let's say you use a calorie tracking app like MyFitnessPal. You're going to want to know how much you're eating each day, how many calories you're expending to hit your fitness goals. Same thing with a business. You need financial reports to track the financial health of your business. This will keep you afloat. This will help you meet your business goals. You'll want to, at the very least, look at these 3 financial statements on a monthly basis. You have your profit and loss, which will show how much you earned or lost as a calculation of your income minus your expenses. And you can set up for what time period you want to look at. You can compare it. For most of you, you're going to be an accrual report type. Accrual is basically transactions are recorded as the transaction occurs. So when the service involved with the transaction is performed, that's when you record it. For example, you could perform a service for a client on a Monday and they don't pay you till Friday. That transaction is recorded on the Monday when that service was served, versus a cash basis, which is you record transactions when you receive money. So back in that same example, you serve the client on a Monday, they don't pay you till Friday. Friday is when you're going to record that transaction. It is important to know which kind of accounting system you want to use. It is usually encouraged to use accrual basis. It'll give you the most accurate depiction of your finances as you're performing from month to month. It'll keep your finances tied to the behaviors and activities of your business. So if you don't know which one to use, go for accrual. Or if you're a very, very, very small business and you don't expect to grow too much, you could record on a cash basis if that just makes more sense to you and you need to be more mindful of money coming and going. You see this often with maybe like construction services where money is all over the place. If it's a small enough business, then doing a cash basis recording could make sense. And it'll show you the report down here of all the accounts involved. Next, we have the balance sheet. This is a snapshot, so like a picture of a certain moment in time for your business. It'll show you your accounts, your assets of what you have, minus what you owe, plus whatever equity is in the business. This will include the money you put into the business yourself, minus any money you take out for yourself. So this is kind of like the overall snapshot of how your business is doing in a daily moment. And you have the option to export these as CSV or PDF files. The other report that is pretty useful is cash flow. Again, if you have a lot going on in your business, if you are in construction, this is a report you're going to look at pretty often. It'll show you what cash is available coming in from investors or maybe through credit from your vendors, as well as cash coming in from your paying customers. And it'll show you that balance over a period of time, like a month or a quarter, whatever you want to set up. And you can export this as well. Two other really important reports, depending on your kind of business. I would say if you do a lot of invoicing and have a lot of bills where you're not paying for things immediately and you're not receiving money from customers immediately, two other reports you'll want to generate. You're going to look at aged receivables and age payables. So this is going to tell you the money that's owed to you, that's outstanding, that hasn't been paid yet. And this is going to show you the money you owe to another business that you haven't paid yet. These are numbers you're going to be on top of. These are accounts you're going to be on top of, because if you don't get these bills paid and you don't get your invoices paid, your business is going to suffer. And the numbers you see in your profit and loss are not going to be so accurate to the kind of cash you have on hand. So next, we have another button that's just another ad for their own Wave advisors. And we have tax filing, which is basically their partner with H&R Block. I did use this in my other business for a couple of years, and it was very useful. It's pretty convenient to just have your general ledger, your books immediately sent to a tax preparer, and I didn't necessarily have to include a lot of information to get my taxes filed. So there you have it. This was the overview of everything that you would use in Wave on a pretty standard basis. And now that you've seen where everything is, we're going to set up a fictional business, a marketing business, and I'm going to show you what it looks like on the ground, how a business will record their transactions on a daily or weekly basis, as well as run a reconciliation on a regular basis. So let's get started and go over how to set up your business in Wave. Okay, to get started, you're going to go to the Wave app's homepage and you're going to click on the sign up button. You can choose to sign up with an email and a password and go the more traditional route, or you can sign up with a Gmail account if you have one. And once you do that, it's going to take you to this sign up page where you're going to put in your first and last name, and your business name. For our fictional business, it's going to be the Marketing Experts. And I like to include the designation of the business just to make it a bit more formal. You'll select here, what does your business do? You're going to select the industry that your business is in. And for this business, for Marketing Experts, it will be advertising, marketing, and media. And the legal structure of this business, you have the options of sole proprietorship. If you're a very, very small business, you might just be a sole proprietorship if you're not making much money, if it's just a side hustle. You also have limited liability companies, which separate some of the legal liability away from the owner of the business. And then you have corporations with the option of C corporation or S corporation. These are basically a lot of the public companies you see are corporations, or if you have employees, you'll probably be an S corporation, but still want to maintain some of the basic legal structure of an LLC. But for most small businesses, you'll probably be an LLC. And for this example, we're just going to select a single member LLC. And if you don't know the legal structure of your business, you can select other and I'm not sure. This is just some useful information for Wave to have when it comes to preparing your business's taxes and collecting the kind of information used for those forms. So for our example, we're going to have LLC, single member LLC, and click next. This next page asks us to tell them what year the business started. We're going to say it started this year in 2024. They want to know how many customers you have. This is a brand new company, so we're going to say 0 to 1. They want to know, do you accept payments online? And for now, we'll say not yet, but I want to start. And lastly, have you ever used a paid software to help with your bookkeeping? Since we're a new business, we're going to say no. And click next. And it looks like they want us to tell them what services we might be using in Wave. So for this little marketing business, we're just going to select Send Good Looking Invoices and organize your books. Here they're offering us a choice between the starter plan and the pro plan. Because we're looking to stick to free bookkeeping software, we're just going to stick with the starter plan. Now Wave is setting up the books, and if this takes too long, I recommend refreshing the page. Alright, and it's going to take us to the dashboard. When you're first getting started, it's going to show a list of different things you're going to want to do to set up your Wave account. So we're going to go through each of these one by one. First, there's connect your bank account, which is only something you could do with the pro option. So we're going to skip that one since we're sticking to the free starter option. Next, it's asking us to review your income and expense accounts. Let's see what it shows us. Okay, so it wants us to set up a chart of accounts. This is a really important thing you need to do before you start categorizing your business transactions. So let's go to review your accounts, and it's going to take us to the chart of accounts. You can also get to this page by going over to the nav bar on the left, selecting the option accounting, and then selecting chart of accounts. So here the chart of accounts is basically a summary of all the different accounts, all the different categories that make up each of your business transactions. And they have them separated in 5 main categories. These are assets, liabilities and credit cards, income, expenses, and equity. And it'll show you a number that designates how many accounts you have in each of these major categories. So we're going to go over each of these one by one. Your assets are anything that your business owns and has some form of value. An asset can be the cash that you have in the bank. It could be the machinery that your company owns that produces your product. It's also your inventory. So assets are things your business owns. Now, the first account that they have here under cash and bank are going to be any categories that involve the storage of money. This will be your business bank accounts, your cash on hand, and it seems the only category they have to start is cash on hand. This is just physical cash you may have that belongs to your business. Now, we're going to also want to create an account to represent our business's bank account. By the way, you should have a separate business account, banking account for your business. You do not want to mix your personal account, your personal bank accounts with your business. These transactions need to be kept separate because it'll make it a lot easier to categorize what is a business transaction versus what is your own personal spending and income. And if you're ever audited, it'll be much easier to show the transactions that belong to your business. Since we are using the free option of Wave, we're going to add an account that represents the business bank. So the account type is cash and bank. We're just going to call it, I recommend calling it whatever title bank you use. Since this is a fictional bank, we're just going to say US Bank. Its account currency that is the US dollar. And for now, we'll just leave everything else blank. Click Save. And now we have the first bank that our business uses. If you use extra banks, like separate couple of different banks, I would make an account for each one of those. Next, there's money in transit. This would be an account that represents any money that might be transferring from one bank account to another. This can be an important category to have if you are getting to the end of your month and you need to reconcile your accounts and you want your bank statement to match the money that's been recorded in your books. If there's money being moved, it's not going to add up. The bank statement and your recorded transactions are going to look a little off. So having a money in transit account can be really important, especially if you're often moving ACH transfers, collecting income through ACH, or you're moving money across separate accounts often. Then you'll want to create an account for this section. Next, there's expected payments from customers. This in general is your accounts receivable. This is money that is owed to you by your customers. This is a general account. We're going to leave it as is, but if you wanted to separate into different kinds of accounts receivable, you could add more accounts to do so. Next, there's inventory. This would be an account to use if your business maintains inventory to sell physical products. Because Marketing Experts is an online business, we're not going to include an inventory account. Next is property, plant, equipment. This is any asset your business owns that is used to operate your business, create your products, and it's not going to be sold to your customers. This can be machinery. This could be a company car. This could even be the computer your business uses if you want to treat it as equipment. And property, plant, and equipment is usually connected to the next section, which is depreciation and amortization. Depreciation is basically the amount of money that your property, your plant, your equipment, it loses its value over time. Machines get older, they don't work as well as they did when they were first new. The most common example people think of are cars. Cars depreciate, they lose their value the older they get. So to record when depreciation occurs, a lot of bookkeepers will break it down by the typical length of life for that item. So if you want to track that depreciation, you'll want to create an account for that. This is something your CPA can help explain to you and tell you whether you need to be tracking for certain things that your business owns. And they can create a depreciation schedule or amortization schedule for you. Next, we have vendor prepayments and vendor credits. This could be anything your vendors, the suppliers you may be buying your supplies from. If you pay them ahead of time but haven't received the goods yet or the service yet, then you can track that purchase as a prepayment until you actually receive the service or the good, which will later become something like your property, plant, equipment, your inventory, or just a general business expense. And similarly, if you receive credits from your vendor, whether maybe you have a problem with an item, this can be an area where you can create an account to track that. Next are other short-term assets. Basically, a short-term asset is different from a long-term asset in that short-term assets are anything that's going to be used within a year, while long-term assets will be anything that will be used for longer than a year. If you have an account you want to include that doesn't fall into any of the other asset accounts we covered above, then you would select one of these. Okay, so next we're going to go up into liabilities and credit cards. This is going to be the section of everything that your business owes to other people. It could be loans, it could be the credit used on a credit card, it could be even borrowed money from friends and family. The first section up here is credit card. I would recommend creating an account for every credit card your business uses. It'll be a lot easier to reconcile these accounts if they are their own category. So we're going to say that Marketing Experts has an Amex account and maybe a MasterCard account. Next are loan and line of credit. If you get a loan, you could create a category of something like bank loans that will track all of the loans that you need to pay back to various banks. Another could be borrowed money from family and friends. Next, we're looking at expected payments to vendors. This is your general accounts payable section. So anytime you make a deal with a vendor to receive a service or a good and you haven't paid them yet and you get a bill for that transaction, that's going to fall into your accounts payable. We're not going to add any other accounts. We're going to just leave the general accounts payable. Next is sales tax. Sales tax is set up separately up in settings. We can do that later, but once it's set up, you will have a sales tax account, which will be money that you owe your state, and you're going to have to track that amount so that you can properly pay your state government. Next is due for payroll. If you had employees, this could be taxes that you as a business owe to your employees. This would be your FICA tax, your Medicare, your Social Security taxes that you pay as an employer or that you withhold on behalf of your employees. Next, we have due to you and other business owners. So this is something to talk about with the CPA, but you can create loans from you as a person that you can create for your business. You can even charge interest on those loans. That would be an account that you would create here for you or if there's any other business owners. Next are customer prepayments and customer credits. This would be money your customers pay for a service or a good that you haven't delivered yet. So those goods and services are not considered a sale until they're actually delivered. And until that time, it would be considered a prepayment. This could also look like a deposit for a service or a good. There's also the possibility to create customer credits. This could be for returns or if there's problems with a good or service that you're gonna give back to your customer for them to use on a different purchase in the future, then you'll want to set up an account for that as well. Next are other short-term liability. Again, short-term in accounting world is anything that's less than a year. If you need to create a liability account that doesn't fall into any of these other categories and it's going to be paid off within a year, you could add an account there. Or if it's a more long-term liability, something that you'll pay off in longer than a year, you can add that account here. So scrolling back up, we're going to look next at income categories. All right, for income, now we have a general sales category. You can use this as a catch-all category for all of the sales from purchase of services or goods in your business. I personally like to make separate accounts for specific things, such as sales that are for services versus maybe sales that are for products. Marketing Experts is going to have two main offerings. One will be a digital course that they sell, and another is going to be a consulting service. So one is a good, the other is a service. So we're going to make two separate accounts for that. I'm going to call the first one product sales. And the second one is going to be service sales. Next, there's a category to include discount accounts. So if you plan on offering discounts and you need to track them separate from sales, you can create an account for that here. Next, we have other income. This could be any other income you receive on behalf of your business, such as interest for any loans your business gives out or any dividends on any investments. That would be included in other income. And there's two other automatic categories down here. One is uncategorized income. Wave will automatically put anything that you haven't categorized into this uncategorized income account. And same thing for gain on foreign exchange. If you are recording sales of goods or purchases of goods in separate currencies, if you're ever making a gain on that transaction of converting the currency, then it'll automatically be calculated and included in this account. So that's it for income. Next, we're going to go to expenses. And expenses basically include everything that your business is going to purchase to help run the business. I'm not sure if Wave goes into detail here, but I will say that expenses are different from purchases. Purchases are for your cost of goods sold. It's whatever you spend on merchandise, on creating a product that you're physically selling. That gets tracked separately from expenses, which are just usually like office administration expenses, the software expenses that are used to run the business, but not necessarily make the product. I think Wave just lets you combine both under expense. They have their own cost of goods sold section down here. It's just an accounting tip to know the difference when you're talking to a CPA or a bookkeeper. So let's look at each of these. The first one is accounting fees. This will be any fees you spend on your CPA, a bookkeeper, organize your finances for your business. Next are bank service charges. This can be any fee you get when you're transferring funds or if you're being charged for overdraft. Next, you have computer hardware. So I mentioned earlier, you could categorize a purchase like a computer as an asset for your business, or you can just include it as an expense. Next are web hosting services, internet services that you use to run your business, as well as software. This is a category I use all the time, and I feel many businesses online will use as well. We have depreciation expense. This is the amount of depreciation reported on the income statement to determine the appropriate depreciation expense for a period. They give you an example of what that looks like. So each month you're going to be reporting depreciation on any of your assets that each month you can record a bit of that depreciation in this expense. Next, we have dues and subscriptions. These are fees, dues you can pay for any organizations that your business is a part of, but they make a point of saying that this does not include business licenses or permits or business memberships. Next, there's insurance that you use for your vehicles, if you have vehicles for your business. We also have interest expenses, which could be the interest you pay on loans or credit cards. Next are meals and entertainment. This will be the food or beverage products you consume while conducting business. After that, we have office supplies. This is basic office supplies that you can use, as well as services you may use for your business. This is a really good catch-all category if you're not sure about a purchase you made. Next, there are professional fees. This would be any fees you pay for consultants or trained professionals. After that, we have rent expenses. This will be the rent you pay if you rent a space, or let's say you use like a WeWork space. This would be included in rent expense. However, it's just for property space or furniture, an actual office. It does not include equipment rentals. After that, we have repairs and maintenance. If you ever pay to repair any of your business assets or equipment, that would fall under this category. After that, we have telephone that is categorized as a landline or telephone as wireless. This will be any mobile services you paid for, your data that you use on behalf of your business. After that, you have travel expenses, utilities, fuel for your vehicle if you use a business vehicle or you're driving on behalf of your business. And lastly, any vehicle repairs and maintenance. The next section is cost of goods sold. These are purchases that directly go into making your product. So if you were making t-shirts, let's say, the t-shirts you buy wholesale, those costs would go under this category. And there's even a subcategory for any subcontracted services you may utilize in order to create goods that you sell. This could be any additional labor you hire on in order to create your product. Next, there's a section if you need to create an account for a payment processing fee. For example, if you're moving money and you need to do an instant transfer, that processing fee could go here in a new account for that. Next are payroll expenses. This would be anything for employee benefits, employer share benefits, salary and wages paid to employees. Next, there are uncategorized expenses. This is a category automatically created for any of your new transactions that haven't been categorized yet. And lastly, an automatic account of any loss on foreign exchange. If you're exchanging currency in order to do business and you lose money on that exchange, then that will be included in this account. All right, let's move up and go to the last category, which is equity. So equity can include the money that you personally contribute to your business or that you withdraw from your business. They include both as owner investment, which would be the money you put in, and drawings, money you would take out. It's separate from taking a salary for your business. This would be money that you keep for yourself or that you contribute from your own pocket. And lastly, there's the section of retained earnings. This will be the profit you make after everyone else is paid. And if you're doing a month-to-month kind of bookkeeping, this would be the profit you made at the end of the month. All right, I'll just note that if you really want to create a new account without selecting a category here, you can quickly select add a new account and choose from those same account titles. They're all in here as well. Okay, so we set up a chart of accounts that is the bare bones for getting this online business started. We're gonna go back to the dashboard and see what they want us to do next. They want us to categorize a transaction. So we're gonna make our first recorded transaction in Wave. So let's do it. And this is gonna take us to the transactions page, which you can also find by selecting accounting and going to transactions here. Since we aren't automatically uploading transactions, we can either upload it straight from a bank statement or a credit card statement, or most likely you could choose to add manual transactions. So here it gave us a general transaction form that we can use to set up our first transaction. So let's say for marketing experts, the very first transaction that occurred in the business is that the owner, John Smith, decided to put $500 of personal cash into the business. So this is going to be known as an owner starting contribution. And the account affected is going to be the US bank. You're going to the bank and putting it right into the business bank account. And the category is owner's investment and drawings. So John Smith put $500 into the account, and we will save that transaction. So if you go over to reports and you go to the balance sheet, as of today's date, you can see that there is a total of $500 cash in the bank for that section of cash and bank accounts, and a total of $500 in equity that belongs to the owner. Remember that equities equals assets, what the business owns, minus liabilities, what the business owes. So if the business were to close today, it'd be worth $500. So that's our first transaction. Next, we're going to brand the invoices. Let's do it. So here for a invoice template, you can add your own logo. You can choose an accent color and a template type. Okay, so for fun, I made a little logo for marketing experts. We're going to add that logo here. And that looks nice and professional on the template. Let's update that accent color as well. Maybe something a bit more spiffy, like a gold color. Let's see. There's a choice between contemporary, modern, or classic template. We're going to stick with contemporary. And we're going to say, looks great. Let's go. So now when we have a new invoice, like the one in front of us, this template will automatically be used whenever we need to create an invoice. Since Marketing Experts hasn't done any business yet, we're going to just go back to the dashboard and go to the next setup option. So next we have customize your invoice settings. All right, let's do it. All right, this just took us to the settings button. If you go up to the top right, you select on your business name. You can get to your business settings by clicking this button here. And if you go down, You can select Invoices and Estimates settings under Sales and Payments. So we pick the logo, we pick the accent color, the template. Some other invoice settings are default payment terms. This is basically the amount of time that you give your client to pay for their invoice. A standard is due upon receipt, so basically they need to pay when they get it. But depending on your business type and industry, you may give some more leeway, like 15 days or 30 days. So we're going to leave it due upon receipt. You can give it a default title if you want something different than invoice. You can also include a default subheading, a default footer, and default notes and terms. If you change any of this, you can select Save All Changes once you're done. So too, there's more settings. If you can edit the different types of titles of the columns on your invoice items. For example, we can use products or services instead of items. Since marketing experts will probably be sending out invoices for the one-on-one services, we're going to use services as the default title. Next, you can choose what kind of units. So marketing experts will be offering services by the hour, so we're going to select hours as the template units. If you are selling physical items, then you'd want to select something like quantity or create another name. Next, you can choose whether it says price, rate, or have any other term that you'd like to use. We'll use rate for the services. And lastly, you can do the same thing for amount. You can leave it as is or use another name of your choice. You can also choose which columns on your invoices you want to hide. If you want to hide an item, hide description, hide quantity, price. If you just want to show the bottom line of what's owed, that's up to you. So we're going to click Save All Changes and go back to the dashboard. And next they want us to add customers. For now, we're going to skip this and come back to it later and I find it interesting they put it in that order because we haven't added anything that the business actually sells yet. So let's go down and do add a product or service first. So the first thing that Marketing Experts is going to offer, and you can also get to this page by coming over here and going to Sales and Payments and selecting Products and Services. And then you can add a product or service here. So the first thing we're going to include is Marketing Expert one-on-one consultation. We can use a description, basically be the same as the name. And the rate, we're going to say they charge $150 per hour for those consultation services. We're going to select Sell This. That means it's going to be included as a product or service that will be sold on invoices to customers. And that service income account will be that category we made earlier, the service sales account. We'll select that. Otherwise, for your own business, you may want to just stick to a generic sales account. Since this is just a service that's offered, not a good that's part of cost of goods sold, we won't include this and buy this. And we don't have any sales tax yet. I'm going to leave that blank for now and just save. So there we have it, our first product, which is a service, the consultation service. And now it's listed in the products and services section of Wave. We'll add a second product, and this is going to be Marketing Experts online course. The description could just be marketing course. We'll say they sell that for $249. It's a product that's sold, and we're going to include it as product sales to keep those separate so that we can easily track the different kinds of income. And we're going to avoid sales tax for now. We're going to set it up later. We'll hit save. All right, so now we have services to start. We'll go back to the dashboard. And I'm going to show you how to set up online payments. You can either skip this if you don't, or using Wave. If you already use something like Stripe or PayPal, you can invoice through those services instead and just record the transactions in Wave. But for the sake of automation, we're going to say, let's do it. So they'll take you to the payments page, which you will find under sales and payments on payment setup, and click get started. So they're going to ask you a few questions in order for you to receive payment. They'll want to know your business type. We're going to call it a single member LLC. They'll want an address that belongs to your business, not necessarily your personal address. Kind of want to see how far we can get. You'll add a telephone number, your website. They want to know whether you sell products or services or both. You'll have to pick your business category, include a description, include your EIN that you should have received when you filed your business. Or if you did not receive one, you can select I don't have an EIN. Your doing business as name if you use a different business name that is registered separate from the name of your business that you formed, and whether you've accepted credit card payments in the past. Click save and continue. All right, I'm not sure I can move forward without actually setting up payments with a real address. So in the following categories, it looks like they're going to ask for details about you as an individual, probably your own name and address and phone number, your bank details that it's going to connect the account to, what your customized statement will look like, and then everything will be verified. So if you want to receive your payments through Wave and have those transactions automatically recorded in Wave, you can do that by setting up payments. So for now, we'll finish this later. Just know that if you use any payment processor, they all charge a fee. It doesn't matter if it's PayPal or Wave. The rates are going to look a little different, so you can always choose which one you want to use by how much you will save. But for Wave, it looks like the standard, about 2.9% for credit card plus 60 cents per transaction. That's a little bit high for payment processing. I won't lie, I've seen some other services offer just the 2.9%. So do your due diligence, do your research. Sometimes paying a little bit more just for the ease of not having to write a bunch of manual transactions yourself could be worth it. All right, moving forward. At this time, the next thing we can do is add the first customer. So let's pretend that Marketing Experts gets their first customer. Some young guy looking to basically learn how to set up his marketing plan. Let's say it was a dog sitting business. And they're called Dog Sitters Are Us. His name could be Joe Sitter. With a customer, you can include their email, their phone number, and other information like their If you want to keep designated account numbers for them, you can include a website, other notes, as well as information on their billing and shipping. This comes in handy when you're creating invoices. So for now, we're just going to save. And now we have our first customer. Dog sitters are us. And when you want to see your customers, you go to Sales and Payments and click on Customers down here. You can also create a new customer by coming up here, selecting the Create New button, and selecting Customer. You also have the option to import a list of customers from a CSV file, and you can do so up here. Or if you want to add a customer on the customer page, there's another button for that here. There's a search engine if you want to search by name for a customer. If this list gets really long and you just need to find someone's information real fast, you can look for that here. Okay, so let's say Joe Sitter decides to get some training in how to set up marketing for his dog sitting business. And let's say you get an email from him and he's ready to purchase. So we're going to create an invoice for Joe Sitter. And you can add a customer that's already in the database on Wave by clicking Add a Customer button. You could type in their name, but he's already right here. We have Joe Sitter. His information will automatically come up. This will be our first invoice, so it's invoice number 1. We're not going to include an additional number on it. The invoice date will be the day the invoice was created. We'll say it's today, and the payment is due automatically on receipt, which we set up earlier. So if we come down here to services, we can include the item for this invoice. So Joe Sitter decided to receive a one-on-one consultation. Now let's say Joe Sitter worked with marketing experts for 3 hours. We can just change the hours here. The rate's already automatically included, and that amount is calculated for you. If you put in the wrong item, you can always select to delete here. And if you want to double check to make sure this sale will be recorded in the right income account, that you can click here and see that it will be categorized as service sales. Now we need to include tax. You can set it up right off the invoice. You can also go into your settings and set up. Okay, so let's say you get a service request from Joe Sitter. He wants to hire you on as a marketing consultant and work with you for a couple of hours. So in order to make a new invoice, you can come up here and select Create New and Invoice, and that'll let you create an invoice. You can also come to Sales and Payments and click on Invoices here and click on Create an Invoice. So first, you'll want to add a customer to the invoice. Next, you can include an invoice number. This can be our first invoice. You can include an additional number. Invoice date will be the date that the invoice was sent, and payment date, which will be the day that you expect the invoice to be paid. And we had our template set to just automatically due on receipt, so the same day that the invoice is sent. But you can come over here and change that date if you like. And scrolling down, you have under services, we can add an item. And here we'll add the marketing experts one-on-one consultation. And it'll automatically populate the fields with the rate of what 1 hour is worth. And we can change the rate here. So let's say Joe Sitter meets with marketing experts for 3 hours. Change that there, and it'll automatically calculate that for us as well. And we can include a tax. You can create a new tax by selecting the Create a New Tax button here. You can create a name for the tax. I went ahead of time and created a CA tax, a California tax, but you can include others that make sense for the states that you sell to. So I'll just show you for the CA tax. I named it CA tax, and then tax rate was 7.7%. You put in there, and then you could count this as a recoverable tax. Basically, it just means that at the end of the day, you can calculate the taxes that you owe through your purchases. You can separate that from the taxes that your customers owe and that they've paid on their purchases, and you'll pay the government the difference. You can click learn more if you want to learn more about that. Same thing for a compound tax. We're gonna not include that, and then normally you'd click save, but I already made this tax. So we'll select the tax from here, include a California tax, and then there's an option to add a discount if you want to add a discount. Otherwise, you'll see the total here. There's a footer section as well where you can include like a thank you note or any other tax information like a VAT number. And there's an area to add attachments as well if you want to include any marketing material to go with the invoice. And you can preview it, what the customer will see on their end. So it looks pretty good. And you can continue to edit, but for us, we'll save and continue. So now the invoice is sent. And the last thing you will need to do with invoices is make sure you record a payment once you receive the money for the invoice. You also have the option of turning the invoice into a recurring invoice. And to do so, you just go to recurring invoices and you click the create a recurring invoice button up here. And it'll look the same as setting up an invoice. You just add in all the invoice information. So let's say Joe Sitter decides to do consulting ongoing once a month. Then you would save and continue. And then it'll take you to the recurring invoice options where you can set the schedule. You can repeat this invoice on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, or other custom basis, and on which day of the month. You can determine when that first invoice is sent and when it will stop sending a recurring invoice. Next, you'll either use wave payments to receive payment on that invoice, or you could switch to manual payments. And then you can have the option to send automatically or send manually. And then basically you just need to approve it, and then you can start sending a recurring invoice. So now this action has changed here to record payment. Since we didn't receive payments on Wave, we have to manually change the status of these invoices ourselves. And if we go to the dashboard, you scroll down, you can see that profit has been recorded. We now have income. The invoice has been sent. That is profit for the business even though we haven't received the money yet. You can also see that since the invoice wasn't paid, the only inflow of cash we have so far is the $500 that marketing experts put into the business as owner's deposit. If we scroll down on the dashboard and look at invoices payable to you, you can see that that first invoice is due. It hasn't been paid yet, so it's being tracked here. And as you can see, more information is starting to get populated in our income. Okay, so let's say we receive payment for the invoice. We can just go to sales and payments. We can go to customers, or we can go to invoices. But basically we want to find that invoice for Joe Sitter. If we go to customers, go down to invoice here, and we can select record payment. This is really important. If you are going to send invoices and track outside of Wave, and if you process the payment outside of Wave, you need to be sure that you're going back and recording when you receive the payment. Otherwise, Wave is just going to see an unpaid invoice even though you receive the money. So make sure when you do receive the money from Joe Sitter, you click record payment. You'll put the day that you received it. You'll have the amount, which will automatically be imported from the invoice. You select the method. It could be cash, credit card. You know what? Let's say he paid by check and it went right to your bank. We'll record that. And it gives you the option to send a receipt if you'd like, which you can do so using a link. But if you want to use some kind of attachment, you'll have to upgrade. So we'll close that. And now you can see your customer, Joe Sitter, his invoices are paid. There's no unpaid invoices. You can see how much he's paid in the last year. And if we click on his activity, you can see a log of this invoice being paid, or the invoice being sent, and I guess it's paid. All right. So let's pause for a moment. We went over how to create a chart of accounts, and we went over how to set up a new customer, as well as create an invoice and receive payment for that invoice. Okay, so let's run through a fictional scenario. And this time, you're going to tell me what we're going to do, using the knowledge that you just received in the last tutorial. So in our first scenario, let's say John Smith, the owner of Marketing Experts, he gets a new customer, Randy Roover, a carpet cleaning business who signs up for 1 hour of consulting and hasn't paid yet. There are 3 things you're going to need to do to deal with this transaction in Wave. What are those 3 things? I encourage you to pause this video, open up Wave for yourself, look at software, or just review the earlier part of this video and list those 3 things that you would need to do if you were John Smith and you need to record this transaction. Okay, ready? I'm going to show you in Wave exactly what John Smith would need to do to record the transaction of Randy Roover looking to get 1 hour of consulting. So the first thing you would need to do is to create a customer. There's a few ways you can go about creating a new customer. The first is to just come up to create new button on the top and then go down to create new customer. And you could create it that way. You could also go to sales and payments and click on customers down here and then click add a customer on the top here. You can also, something I didn't cover earlier, create a new customer when you're creating an invoice or any other transaction. Randy, last name Roover. So we'll click save. And now, if we check on customers, you'll see that Randy Ruver is now part of our customers list. So what's the second step you need to do once Randy Ruver has signed up to do an hour of consulting and he hasn't paid yet? That's right. The next step is to create an invoice. Now, to create an invoice, you can go to Create New button at the top and click Invoice. You can also select under Sales and Payments the button Invoice here, and it'll take you to the invoice dashboard. You can also go to Customers, and under Randy Ruver's customer name, you can create an invoice from here as well. So this is the next day when we're creating invoice for Randy Ruver. And to make this invoice, we would need to add an item. Randy Ruver is getting Marketing Experts one-on-one consultation, so we'll select that. And he asked to consult for 1 hour, so we'll leave the automatically populated field as is. And for tax, we're going to put on a California tax and quickly review this document. Looks good, so we'll save and continue. We can approve the draft, and we can send an invoice through here, or we can export as a PDF and send it externally. So we'll click Send Invoice. So we're going to pretend that we sent a PDF separately, and we'll mark it as sent. And now, when we go to the Invoices dashboard, you'll see that today the invoice number 2 was sent to Ruver Cleaning for the full amount due. Now, there's one more thing you need to do to handle this transaction. And that third thing you need to do is to track this invoice, make sure the invoice gets paid. And once it gets paid, you have to record the payment. Do not forget this step, especially if you're just doing your transactions manually. So to record a payment, you will not be able to select it from the Create New button. Instead, you can either go to Customers and you can view the customer, see their unpaid invoices, and on the unpaid invoice, you can select Record Payment, or you can go to the Invoices section and just select Record Payment there. I think this is the smartest route because then you'll see all the other invoices, which will be a reminder as well. So we're going to record payment. We'll say he paid by check. That account will go to your bank, and we'll submit. And you can choose to send a receipt, but for now we'll just close this. So there we have it. All the invoices are up to date. And when we go to Customers and select Randy Ruver, you can see there are no unpaid invoices. And the amount Randy Ruver has spent can be seen up here. Okay, so now that you are all set up in Wave, let's go over the settings for your account. So to access your settings, you go to your account up here, and you'll see you get both the settings for your business as well as personal settings for your Wave account. To go through business settings, we'll click on business settings here. And here there are a number of sections that you can customize to fit your business's needs. The first area is called user management. This means you can give access to your Wave account to people like a bookkeeper, an accountant, maybe someone who's thinking about investing in your business and wants to see your books. You'll have a number of options here for how much access you want to give the invited user. So an admin would receive full access to Wave. This is someone you could give access to who might be your bookkeeper, your accountant, office manager, who can basically perform all the possible tasks in Wave. The next option is editor. This is someone who will have full access to things like accounting and reports, but limited access to sales. They can't adjust your bank connections, export data, and set up integrations. They're recommending that if you don't want to give full access to your bookkeeper or accountant, this would be the next best choice. After that, you have Payroll Manager. This is someone who will have access pretty much to only the payroll options in Wave. After that, you have Viewer Access Only. You can let someone basically see your books, but not be able to create new transactions or basically touch anything in Wave. And lastly, you have an option to invite a tax pro, who would be someone you hire through their H&R Block services. So there you have it for user access. The next category is sales and payments. The first section is invoices and estimates. We were in this section earlier when we were setting up invoices, but basically if you wanted to change how your invoice and estimates look, you can access any of those options here, like logo, the accent color, the invoice style, as well as other information listed on your invoice. Now, overnight, I was invited to the pro trial for Wave, and now they're including a lot more of those pro settings. I'm just going to skip them because we're just focused on the free account from Wave. And you can see estimate settings as well, other invoice column settings. Just remember, once you're done, don't forget to click Save All Changes. After that, we have message templates. I'm pretty sure this is just for the pro version, so we're going to move past it. After that would be your payment settings, and now they're just going to send us to the setup page for payments if you want to receive payments, payment method that connects to the accounting of your business. So let's go back to business settings. And after that, we have the accounting section. Here, there's dates and currency. You can select when your fiscal year end is. For most businesses, it's just going to be the end of the traditional calendar year. Other businesses may select something like June, mid-year for their fiscal year end. Businesses like nonprofits or schools, something that runs by a different yearly cycle. But for most of you watching, you're just going to have the end of the calendar year. Next is sales taxes. You can use this section to create new sales tax if you sell to different states, or rather, if you operate in different states. After that, we have the banking section, which concerns payouts. Again, this is only applicable to you if you plan on using online payments through Wave. After that are payroll settings. You have your business profile, company, signatory, funding account. These are all services that you can only access if you pay to use payroll in Wave. This is beyond this particular course, so we're going to skip it. And lastly, under other, you have manage subscriptions. This would be where you go if you want to manage your pro subscription plan. And lastly, there's data export. This can be a really useful section if you need to share your accounting information as a report through an email, and you can basically download all your transactions for Excel or as a CSV, or even export all receipts. So don't forget that data export is under settings. Now, there are a few other settings. Next are integrations. Here you can integrate Wave with Google Sheets, as well as their partner integration, Blue Camru. If you use these services, you might want to set up that integration here. You can also connect using Zapier to other apps like Shopify, Square, Stripe, and CRM, email marketing apps. So basically anything your business uses outside of Wave, if you use Zapier, you can integrate more of that information through your Wave account and hopefully streamline that process. So next, you have an option to switch businesses. If you have a second Wave account for a different business, you can jump between the two without needing to log in and out. And you have your own profile settings. So if we select this, here you can update your personal information. You can choose to close your account. This might be an option you need if you find yourself in the beginning stages setting up your Wave account and it's just a complete mess and you want to start over from scratch. You have the option to close your account here, or if you one day transfer over to another bookkeeping software, you can also close your account here. Next, you have the options to change password and security. You can set a new password. You can also set up two-step authorization factor, and you can set up a phone number so that you can sign in with your phone number through a text and code. Next, there's the options for notifications. You can choose which email notifications you receive, especially if someone else is doing your bookkeeping. This can be really useful if they want to bring you right to Wave to get some more information from you. You can select which areas you want to receive notifications and update it. And lastly, you have your list of businesses. This is where you can create a new business if you want to have a second business you're tracking transactions for in Wave. If you own properties and you want to create monitoring of transactions for multiple properties, that might be something you want to do. And they also have an option for a personal account. You can use a personal account in Wave if you want to just manage your own personal accounts in a similar style to bookkeeping. I've heard of people basically use this instead of Mint after Mint closed down, and it's not a bad idea. All right, that covers settings. If you ever want to sign out, you can click the sign out button here. All right, now that we've covered settings, let's go over and talk a bit more about sales and payments. Here you could see under sales and payments, we got estimates, invoices, basically everything that you're going to use to interact with your customer. These are all customer related transactions. So let's say, for example, marketing experts gets an inquiry of a new client. Let's say Sally Meyer of Sally's Sandals is a sandal making business. They want to up their marketing skills. They need help and they're interested in the one-on-one consulting, but they have a really big project in mind and they think it's going to take like 8 or 9 hours to do all that consultation. So Sally Meyer decides, hey, I want an estimate. What will it cost to do an 8 or 9 hour consultation? So John Smith can come here, click on estimates, and create a new estimate for this potential client. So John Smith can also go up to create new and create a new estimate from here. And the first thing, we're going to want to add a customer since Sally Meyer isn't in the books yet. So we'll create a new customer. This is Sally's Sandals. First name Sally, last name Meyer. And click save. This is estimate number 1. Since it's our first estimate, we'll say it's the date, same day as today, valid for the next 30 days. And if we want to change that, we can change it to within a week or within 2 months, whatever time frame makes sense for the business. And under services, we'll include a one-on-one consultation. And since Sally's not completely sure on what the exact time might be, we'll just show her an estimate for 9 hours, the higher end. Include sales tax. And if we wanted to include any other marketing material, we could upload those here. But for now, we'll just save and continue. We are going to approve the draft of the estimate that was created. You can see it down here. And we can either send it through Wave, kind of like an invoice, or we can come up to more actions, export it as a PDF, and we could download it and mark it as sent. So now the estimate is sent. There are more actions here. We can always duplicate it. We can print it. We can also preview as a customer and see what they would see on their end, either desktop or in mobile. Looks pretty professional if you ask me. And go back to Wave. And so now John Smith is basically just waiting to get a response for the estimate. And if we come up to dashboard, we'll see that this won't be included in profit and loss. And it's not an invoice, so it's not going to be included in invoices payable to you. So let's say we get Sally's response to the estimate. She decides she's all in, she's ready to go, she wants to do this. Now, one way would be to go to Create New and just create an invoice from scratch by coming up here and selecting Invoice. However, the more streamlined and organized way to go about it would be to come to Sales and Payments and click on Estimates. And now that Sally's decided to go ahead with the consulting, we'll just use the Convert to Invoice option right here. So now all that information from the estimate is uploaded automatically to the invoice. And we can basically just review, make sure all the information is correct. And we can either click Save and Continue if we just want to keep it as a draft, or we can save and send it through Wave, or with more options, we can just download it, copy link, and mark the invoice as sent, since we're not going to do it in Wave. So now when we go to Estimates, you can see there are no more estimates. It's been converted to an invoice. And when we go to Invoices, you can see we have Sally Sandals invoice right here. And basically the next step would be, once we receive payment, we can record the payment. And we'll do that right here in Invoices. We'll say she used a credit card, and your payment method automatically puts it in your bank. So we'll click that the money's going into your bank account and select Submit. And from here, we can send a receipt or just close and move forward. So that was an example of estimates and a little bit more on invoices. Something else I'll note about both estimates and invoices is that at the top there is options to filter, especially if you send out a lot of invoices and estimates. You can filter by customer, you can filter by those that are unsent, sent, viewed, partial. This is a great way to double check your work and make sure that your estimates and your invoices were sent, whether they were viewed by your customer. You can click the date range for a certain time period, or if you know the invoice number, you can look it up that way as well. Okay, it's quiz time again. Okay, so we just went over how to create estimates, how to convert those into invoices, and how to monitor, open invoices and estimates. It's time for another pop quiz. So for our next scenario, our earlier client, Joe Sitter, decides that he wants help with a big marketing project. He's curious how much a 7-hour project is, but isn't ready to commit just yet. So what 3 things do you need to do in Wave if Joe decides to sign up? Take a minute to pause, open up Wave yourself, click on the different buttons, and basically give yourself an idea of what would this process look like. You can also rewind and go back over earlier parts of this course to get an idea of what those 3 main things are. Okay, ready? So first, since Joe Sitter isn't sure yet that he wants to actually pay for consulting, he's really just looking for an estimate. So we can come up to Create New and select Estimate. We'll add the customer first, which is Joe Sitter of Dog Sitters R Us. We'll select the date of the estimate, and we'll give him a month. to decide whether he wants to do consulting with us or not. Under services, we'll add an item. It'll be Marketing Experts One-on-One Consultation. And Joe's interested in what 7 hours would cost. We can include tax on that. Look over the estimate, make sure it looks good. Could include any marketing flyers or other information. And we can save and continue to make a draft, or we can click Save and Send. Now you could send it via Wave with a message. You can get a copy for yourself, or just have this message be sent with an estimate as a PDF as well. But if you don't want to send it through Wave, you can select More Options, copy and share a link, or download the PDF to be sent through an email. And we'll pretend we went through one of these options, mark the estimate as sent. And now when we go to Sales and Payments and click on Estimates, you can see that the estimate status is sent. So that'd be the first step. The second thing that would need to be done after the estimate is sent, since Joe decides he's ready, he does want to commit, the next step would be to convert the estimate into an invoice. The best way to go about sending an invoice from an estimate is to go down to Sales and Payments, select Estimates, and then immediately just click the Convert to Invoice option next to the estimate in question. Now you get to see this estimate converted right into an invoice. All the information was copied over. Look it over, make sure everything looks good, and then save and continue to keep it as a draft, or you can select Save and Send. You can do it through Wave, same way you did with an estimate, or you can select More Options, copy the link, download as a PDF to send separately, and basically once that's done, you can mark the invoice as sent. So now when we go to estimates, you can see they're all clear. There's no more estimates. But when we go to invoices, now we have a sent invoice that's open. And so the third step is going to be to record the payment once the invoice has been accepted and paid by Joe Sitter. You can just go to the invoice section and select Record Payment. You'll put in the date that the payment was received, the amount, the method will say paid by credit card, and it went directly to the bank. And here we can just select Submit. You could send Joe Sitter a receipt, but for now we'll just close this. Alright, that covers basic estimate and invoice options. What happens though if you get a client who decides they want to be a repeat customer? The next step would be to create a recurring invoice. So we want to come over to the recurring invoice section here, and we can create a recurring invoice using that button. And similar to the other invoice form, you'll see all the same information, except that the invoice date is going to be auto-generated. Same thing with the invoice number. So let's pretend that Sally of Sally's Sandals decides she just wants to keep meeting with marketing experts every single month, probably for the next year. We can come over here, select Payment Settings, which are due on receipt. We'll add the item, which is the consultation. We'll say she wants to speak for maybe 2 hours a month every month. We can include sales tax and then click Save and Continue. And since we're doing a recurring invoice, now it will take us to the recurring invoice settings. Here, after the invoice was created, we'll set up the schedule. This invoice is going to repeat monthly. You can choose which day. We'll say the first of every month. We can ask for payment before the service is conducted. We'll select when that first invoice is. It can be next month. And depending on when the agreement ends, you can select an on date or an after date, or if it's ongoing and you want to just come back and mechanically change and end the reoccurring invoice yourself, then you can click never. But for the case of Sally, we're going to say she goes for 1 year. So we'll change it to a year from that first December payment. And select next. We're not going to use the get paid option through Wave. So instead, we can send this invoice. You can put the email address, customize the message. You can attach a PDF of the invoice, as well receive a copy yourself. So once you set the email, it'll try to get you to use their online payment option. You can just ignore that. And basically, it's all done. You can come back to recurring invoices and see there's one that's a draft. Make sure it's set up as manual payments so that you can move forward. And then once you're ready, you can approve and start the recurring invoice. All right, so now we have the recurring invoice all set up. If you go over to recurring invoice under sales and payments, you'll see all active recurring invoices listed here. So that covers estimates and invoices and recurring invoices if you choose to use them. Next, we're going to cover customer statements. This is a very simple section. Basically, if you need to remind a customer if they have an invoice due or a big account with multiple invoices due, you might want to send them a statement or for their own records each month. If you wanted to send a customer statement, you can select the customer and the type. It could be all of their account activity from a specific date or just any outstanding invoices. And once you do so, you click Create Statement. And since there aren't any for this customer, you'll just get this message instead. But moving forward, we're going to go on to the purchases section. So purchases are going to concern anything that you as a business buy from a vendor, from other businesses, that you use those products, those services in order to run your own business. So the first section in here is bills. And since we have no bills set up, we're going to create our first bill. Now, let's say for marketing experts, they decide to use a software service to host their clients. We'll say they use Zoom. Under vendor, we're going to have to create a new vendor. Now, you can also create new vendors by going to the Create New button and selecting Create New Vendor. You can also go to the Vendors section and select Add a Vendor here, or you can even import them from a list of your Google contacts or your CSV file. So let's add a vendor. We're just going to call it Zoom. They are a regular vendor. They're not a contractor. And here you can add additional information like first name, last name, their email, country, state, address. And you can add additional information if you want to assign an account number or include their phone number, a mobile number, or a website. If you plan on sending a lot of bills, I would definitely, at the very least, include a website and an email up here. So once you're ready, click Save. Now we have our first vendor, which is Zoom. Okay, so the next step, we're going to create a bill. And just a reminder, a bill is a request for payment coming from the vendor going to your business. If you've already paid for an item, let's say like with a credit card on a website, you would just go to create new and create a transaction for it. And then you would add the transaction and add it as a withdrawal. You'd enter what it is. It'd be coming, depending on how you paid for it. It could be your credit card, it could be through the bank or cash. The type is a withdrawal. You'd put in the amount, and the category would go for whatever it is that you purchased. So likely one of your expense accounts. Let's say you got software for your business, then you would just click computer software and you can upload the receipt. Now a bill is different. The bill is designating that you are owing money to someone else for a service or a product you received. So let's create our first bill. Let's say you signed up for Zoom and you agreed to a 12-year contract, and in this fictional world, you're planning on paying with a check, and you received an invoice from Zoom for that yearly subscription. You'd add the bill by including the vendor, setting the date that the bill was created, including when it's due. You'd select an item. You'd add a new product. We'll say Zoom subscription, and select which expense category it belongs to. This one's going to be software. The price, we'll say it was $299, and we'll add product. So once everything looks clean, you click save. And now you'll see under bills, you have an unpaid bill for a specific vendor. And once, kind of like invoices, once that bill is paid, you'll want to manually come back to Wave and select record a payment. So somewhat different from invoices. If you go to vendors and you see Zoom here, you can't select it and you can't access any bills that are already belonging to Zoom. You'll only see your bills in the bills section. So let's say you paid the bill. You can select record a payment. You'll say which payment method you use. We'll say you used a check, and select which payment account this check is coming from. We'll say the US Bank, and click save. So now the status of the bill is paid. And if we go to products and services, under purchases, you'll see that the Zoom subscription is here. And you can continue to add products or services that your business pays for and uses by clicking add a product or service here. So if we go up to the dashboard and we scroll down, you can see that now we're getting some data populated into our Wave bookkeeping account. And you can see here's all of the income we've received this month from doing business. And now there's a gray section, which is the outflow. And you can see the $299 for the bill we just paid is listed there. And the dot is the net change between the two. Same thing when you go down to profit and loss, you'll see the bar for income and the bar for expenses and the visual difference between the two. If we hadn't paid that bill, it'd be shown here. And now we can see for the fiscal year so far, the difference between income and expenses. And our first expense was recorded, so you could see it's just one category of software listed here. So that covers bills. I think it's time for another quiz. Okay, so it's time for another quiz. So we just went over how to create bills, how to create vendors, and how to add products and services that your vendors provide. So in this scenario, John Smith decides to purchase a new mic to make podcasts to market his business. He ordered the mic, but he hasn't paid yet. What 3 things do you need to do in Wave by the time John pays for the mic? So take a moment to pause here, explore your own Wave software if you want to be hands-on, or you can rewind and watch the previous section of this course. Come back here and press play again. Okay, so John Smith decides to purchase a new mic. To do this in Wave, first we're going to want to create a vendor and a product for that vendor that we're purchasing. So we can start by going to create new and selecting vendor. We can also go down to purchases and go to vendors and select add a vendor here. We're going to say it's mic store for the vendor, and it's just a regular vendor. You can add additional information here. We'll hit save. Keep it simple. And then now that we have the vendor, we can go to products and services and add the product or service here. We can also, since we're making a bill, we can go to product and services, select product and service here. We can add the mic. We'll say it was $80. And since we're not selling it, we're not going to click sell this. We're just going to click buy this. And the expense account it's going to connect to will be office supplies. Since John hasn't paid for the product yet, we're going to need to create a bill. And to create a bill, you can either go to the create new button and select bill, or you can go down to purchases and go to the bills dashboard, and you can create a bill here as well. So we'll create a new bill. We'll select the vendor to be the mic store. We'll put in the bill date as well as the due date for the bill, its currency. You can add any notes or a bill number if you like. And then we select the item that we're going to pay for, the mic. It has an expense category already when we set it up for office supplies. And it's showing us one mic for a price of $80. And if you wanted to include tax, you can do so here. And since everything looks good, we'll click save. And now under the bill section, we see we have an unpaid bill for the mic store, which brings us to the next step. And that is to record a payment once the bill is paid. So in order to do that, we'll just come right to the bill section, find the bill that we're looking for, and select record a payment. You'll want to put in the payment method, and in this case we could just put that it was paid with a credit card. It'll show the amount, the date paid, and then you'll select the payment account. So if you used a credit card, you'll select the credit card account that you've created in Wave, or if you paid cash, you can do cash on hand. But in this case, we'll say that John Smith paid with an Amex card. And we'll click save here. And now the bill status has been switched to paid. So now we come to the dashboard, and if we look at cash flow, notice that the cash flow hasn't changed for outgoing, even though we did purchase equipment. And the reason for that is that the equipment was paid with a credit card, not cash. If you make a payment to the credit card, that's going to come up in cash flow. But you will see in profit and loss that the expense is recorded here because it's a total of expenses. It doesn't matter what capital was used to purchase the item. We're just showing all expenses here for the business. And now when we go to expense breakdown, you can see since we have an office supply purchase, that's a percentage of all expenses versus the amount that was paid for the computer software. And as you add more transactions, these are all tools that will help you understand the flow of money in your business. So that's it for purchases. So next, we're going to talk about the accounting section and go into how you can upload receipts for your transactions. So we'll come over to the accounting section and we're going to start with transactions. Now, this is one of the most important sections of your Wave software. If you want to see all of your business's transactions, this is where they will be. This is going to include all the bills, all the invoices. This is basically what's known as your general ledger, the sum of all your transactions in one place. So we've talked a bit about making invoices and estimates and now bills. Bills and invoices and estimates all involve these transactions that don't actually come with the automatic spending of money or receiving of money. For a transaction where, let's say, you went to the store and you decided to buy some pens for your business and you pay with a credit card right then and there at the store, you will just add it as a normal transaction. And to do so, you would select Add Transaction. You can go up to Create New and select Transaction as well. So you'll add a transaction, and if you are spending money, you'll do Add Withdrawal. If you are receiving money, if let's say you got paid elsewhere and you already received money for a product you're selling and you didn't need to create an invoice, then you would do Add Deposit. But let's say you went to the store, you bought some pens, you paid with a credit card on the spot. You'd select Add Withdrawal. You'd put the date of the transaction. You could write a description. You could say pens purchased. The account is going to be where the money came from. So if in person you paid with a credit card, you'll select which credit card account you want to use. Otherwise, it could be with cash that you had on you, or if you used a checking account to pay, then you'd select the bank that is connected to that checking account. So in this case, we'll say it was paid with the MasterCard. It's a withdrawal type. We'll put in the amount. We'll say $10. And the category is the expense category. So in this case, it'll just be office supplies. You have the option to add a note here, or you can include the receipt and click Save. And now the transaction is automatically added to your general ledger. And if you want to go back in the future, you can always add a receipt later. You also have the option to upload transactions by uploading a statement. It could be your bank statement, it could be your credit card statement. If you wanted to do it on a weekly or a monthly basis instead of ad hoc posting transactions manually. But just know that if you're not making an estimate, if you're not making an invoice, if you're not making a bill, all these other transactions are going to be involved here. Now you can also create a transaction that might be a little different from just adding a deposit or a withdrawal. And to do that, you would add a journal entry. This is something I recommend not doing if you don't have any bookkeeping or accounting experience, or if you don't understand how debits and credits are used in an accounting setting. I would avoid messing with a journal entry, but just know that this option is here too. You can also manage receipts in the receipt section, but some of these services are going to be behind the paywall for the pro account. All right, moving forward with accounting, we're going to talk about reconciliation. Here they have a little pop-up teaching you a little bit about reconciliation. Now, what is reconciliation? Is basically a double checking process to make sure that your bank statements, your credit card statements, all match the data entry you've put into Wave. So Wave needs to balance and match the physical statements that come from your bank account. And they break these down by the account, which is why you do want to make separate accounts for each of your credit cards and each of your banks in your chart of accounts. Remember, you can do that by going to chart of accounts and adding a new account under that section. So if you wanted to add a new credit card, you could go to liabilities and credit cards and add a new credit card under the credit card section, selecting add a new account. But back to reconciliation, you'll want to reconcile each of these accounts. To do so, you'll click the Get Started button. Start using Amex as an example. You'll need that statement to do the reconciliation process. You'll want to do this at least once a month, if possible. But if you don't have a lot of transactions, then maybe you can get away with doing this once a quarter. However, for the majority of you, you will want to reconcile your accounts at least once a month, because the sooner you catch any discrepancies, the sooner you can figure out what the problem was and then get your books back up to date. So you'll want to include the ending balance date and the ending balance amount that is shown on your statement. So for the purpose of this, let's say the ending balance is on the statement is 5616. We'll click Save. And here it'll take you to the reconciliation page for that account, for the Amex account. And as you can see, you're going to go through each of these and match them to the statement. So if you see a charge on your credit card statement that matches the bill payment to the Mike store and the amount of $86.16, you would click on this and select Match. Now, if balances are still not matching, you can go back to Account Reconciliation. And here you have the option to add a transaction, maybe something that's not showing on the statement yet or something that's missing. We're going to pretend that the reason why the difference is there is that you decided to make a $30 payment on the card. So we're going to call this transaction credit card payment. We'll say it was the same day. This is a deposit into the account for $30. And the category will be the transfer from bank, credit card, or loan. It's going to be coming from US Bank. Click Save. And now that we have the $30 accounted for, the account is reconciled. You'll have to go back and do this for all of your accounts. But I'm just going to show you. We'll pretend that we saw the credit card payment already on that statement for the Amex and include it as matched. And now you have a reconciled account. Just to point out, there are filter options here if you need to go through. You can sort from newest to oldest or oldest to newest, and you can search for transactions using the search bar here. So that's account reconciliation. And once it's reconciled, under the reconciliation dashboard, you can see when that happened and look at those reconciled transactions. Okay, folks, it's time for another pop quiz. Just to recap, we went over the account section on how to add basic transactions, as well as how to reconcile your accounts. So for this scenario, we're going to say that Randy, one of your customers, decides to buy the marketing course using a third-party payment processor to pay with a credit card. So Randy bought the course, paid using, who knows, maybe PayPal, and that transaction occurred outside of Wave, and the money was deposited in John Smith's bank account. What do you need to do in Wave to record this? You could take a minute to pause. You can open up your Wave software, go through and see how you would do it yourself. Or you can rewind this section and come up with a plan that way. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, let's go over how to handle this scenario. So Randy decides to buy a marketing course, and you, John Smith, were already paid through some kind of third-party app. So that means you're not creating an invoice. Instead, you're just creating a transaction. You can come up to Create New and select Transaction, or you can go down to the Accounting section and select Transactions there and add a transaction. So we're going to add a deposit. Up here, you'll write the date of the deposit. You'll write a description. We'll say, and we'll put funds for purchase course. The account is the US bank, since that's where the money is being deposited to. The amount of the course, if I remember correctly, was $249, and the category will be part of product sales. If you want, you can include a note, but otherwise we'll just save. And now you have a transaction that represents the purchase course. Now, I don't know if you're noticing this, but personally, I can see that it's a little tricky that there isn't just a receive payment option here. Because with these transactions, you can write in whatever the description is, but it might not automatically link back to your product or service. And if you have a bunch of products and services and you want it in specific categories for each of those, you're going to have to know offhand which category it's in. So if you go to reports and you want to look at income by customer, for instance, that course purchase is not connected to your customer because it wasn't included as an invoice. So one possible workaround is that you just create invoices for everyone, even if you don't send one. If you want to make sure all that information is properly tracked in Wave. This is another reason why it might just be useful to use the payment setup to accept Wave payments so that everything is properly categorized and matched in Wave. But I will say, as a bookkeeper who almost exclusively uses QuickBooks with my clients, this is why a more robust software makes a big difference in helping you get accurate financial information for your business. So that's something I would like to see Wave make different, to include some kind of receive payment option so that everything is properly recorded in your books. But moving forward, we'll go back to the accounting section and we'll just look at chart of accounts again. Just a reminder that if you need to create a new account, you'll want to go to chart of accounts, and depending on whether it's an asset account, a liability account, expense account, or equity account, you can find the appropriate category and include it there. And that's it for accounting. So lastly, we're going to move to the report section. Now, creating reports for your business is something I recommend that you do often, on at least a monthly basis and either a weekly or bi-weekly basis if you run a lot of invoices and create a lot of bills and you need to stay on top of who owes you and who you owe. So at the very least, on a monthly basis, I recommend under financial statements that you generate a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet statement, and a cash flow statement. So for profit and loss, this is the income statement. It's going to show you during a specific time period. We'll just do it for November, for instance. So we're just looking at the transactions that we just put into Wave. And your profit and loss will basically show you the money coming in that you received as income. This is not the same as the money coming in from something like a loan. This is just pure income from the sales within your own business, minus the cost of goods sold, anything you use to create your product, and subtracting as well any of your operating expenses. And this is going to lead to your net profit. This is what you take home at the end of the day. This is your profit or your loss. And this will tell you whether or not your business is actually successful. Now, it also doesn't matter if you still have invoices that need to be paid or bills you need to pay. This is the amount that represents the transactions occurring, the business that you're doing in real time. So here you can see a summary of the amount you made for whatever period of time that you like. I think it's good to track these on a monthly basis, minus the expenses that you paid for during that time. And then you can click Show Details to get a breakdown of subcategories where each of your expenses or your income came from. And you can export this report as a CSV file or a PDF, especially if you're going to share it with others in your company. Or if you like to keep an organized folder for tracking this over time. The next report you need to know is the balance sheet. And the balance sheet basically looks at everything your business owns minus everything that your business owes to anyone else, and the equity that's in your business at a given point in time. So the profit and loss statement that we just saw, that is detailed over a certain specific amount of time, like a month. However, a balance sheet is just a snapshot. It is a moment in time of your business. So it'll be for a certain date, and it'll show you all your assets, which could include things that you might have purchased for your business, like a car, a machinery, that you could have made that purchase months ago, but since it's part of your current business, that value is still a part of your business and the amount that your business is worth, minus any liabilities you have. Again, you might have taken out a loan over a year ago, but if you haven't paid it all off yet, whatever is remaining will be in your liabilities. And lastly, the equity. Anything you as an owner own. This could be the money that you put into the business personally. It will also include the money you've taken out personally. That'll be subtracted from your balance, as well as any retained earnings from previous periods and the overall profit you've made in your business. Again, you can click Show Details to see a breakdown of where your liabilities are broken down into, as well as retained earnings based on profit or from specific periods. And again, you can export this by clicking Export as a CSV file or a PDF. And you can also change this to a cash basis, but for most of you, I recommend just sticking to accrual. And moving on. So the third report that you'll want to know well and look at periodically is the cash flow. Cash flow is basically showing you the physical exchange of money as it occurs in time. So even if you make a bunch of sales in a given month, but if they were all invoices and you didn't receive a penny for any of those invoices, then you're going to show probably negative or zero cash flow. This is important to look at to make sure you have enough in the bank to pay your employees, to pay for your purchases, any subscriptions your business has. And it'll give you an idea if maybe you need to be more on top of getting your invoices paid, or maybe even getting an extension on your bills. And again, you can export this as a CSV file, or a PDF. And you can always change this to a prior period or a different amount of time if you want to compare your cash flow over time. So going back to reports, these are the three you're going to want to look at on at least a monthly basis, if not more frequently. You'll see there's a couple other reports offered in Wave, such as those related to tax, payroll, customers. The two other kinds of reports I think you need to look at regularly if you have a lot of invoice-based customers and you have a lot of bills are aged receivables. This is going to be an account of who still owes you money as of a certain period of time. And the other one is aged payables. This is for your vendors. This will be anyone you owe money to, any bills that are outstanding. That will show you as of a certain period of time. And again, these can be exported as CSV or PDF files. And one more interesting report, if you want to see every single transaction in your account, you can go to Account Transactions. This is your general ledger, and it will list all of your transactions for each separate account. It's categorized by each separate account. So you can see a summary of that. For example, if you just wanted to see all of your Amex related purchases, you can look at that here. And as far as Wave goes, we just went over all the basic kinds of transactions you'll record in Wave, the basic kinds of reporting. All right, I think it's time for a final quiz. All right, folks, it's time for one last quiz. We just went over the report section of Wave, and now you have an understanding of which reports you should be looking at on a monthly basis and which reports you could use to stay on top of your invoices and your bills. So in scenario 6, it's the end of the month. Which 3 reports does marketing experts need to review in order to understand how the business is going? So what are these 3 reports and where do you find them in Wave? I'll give you a minute to think about this. You can review the prior section of this video, or you can go on to Wave and click and search for yourself. Feel free to pause right here. Basically, the 3 main reports that John Smith should look at, that you should look at for your business on a monthly basis, are the profit and loss, otherwise known as income statement, the balance sheet, and cash flow statement. And you can find those statements by going to the report section and clicking there. There'll be the top 3 reports listed on the report section under financial statements. And you can click on each one of these to generate the report. And you can export them, print them out, and do whatever you need to collect this financial information. So there you have it, folks. We basically went over the entirety of what Wave has to offer for its free bookkeeping software service. As you can see, while this may not be the most robust bookkeeping software you could have, it is one of the most affordable options and pretty accessible options to utilize if you're just a small business or you're just starting out, launching your business, and you want to be on top of your finances and be able to simply stay on top of your transactions. They do seem to have more features available in their Pro account, which again could be very useful if you intend on staying as a small business or a side hustle. But if you're thinking of working with a bookkeeper, or your business is a bit more complex and you want to absolutely make sure everything is accurately tracked and up to date, I recommend sticking with the gold standard software, which is QuickBooks. I've heard Xero is a good option as well. And if you subscribe to the Profit Logic YouTube channel, you can keep a lookout for when I launch a similar free course going over how to use QuickBooks. So now that you understand how to use Wave, please let me know in the comments section what you found helpful, what you liked about this course. If there's anything you think I missed that I can create in a new video, please let me know. I would love your feedback. And if you got a lot out of this course, again, I just ask for a thumbs up, a subscribe. That way you can help me help other business owners get started with doing their books right from the get-go. Again, my name is Andrew Bloom. I'm a bookkeeper at Profit Logic. If you want to avoid all this hassle altogether and you'd like to have a bookkeeper as part of your team, then feel free to click the Profit Logic link in the description box below, and we can have a little chat and see how I can help you. All right, folks, I wish you well in your business endeavors. Good luck with your bookkeeping, and take care.